Well, hello there, everyone, and welcome to episode number 95 of FinalBossTV, your wild game rating show. My name is Adam K.A.K. Bay, and I will be your host for this adventure on episode number 4 of 8. I just added 4 more fingers. I'm like a magician. Of the Warlords of Ketchup series, is where we sit down with multiple different classes and specs of the same type of role in a raid, and sort of get caught up on patch 6.2, the ring nonsense, the Hellfire Citadel shenanigans of sorts, and this one is especially interesting because we get to talk about how much all these healers, well, sort of one of them, love bubbles and absorbs, and then a couple weeks from now we can talk to the healers that don't have those and see how they pair up. So without further ado, who are our guests today? Well, you'd know if you read the title above the screen. I guess that works too. But returning for the show to claim the best healer spot of all 6 of them, until Demon Hunter healers come in, of course, in the next expansion, of course. There's Jack. Hello, sir.
Hello, hello.
Are you raising your horns right now? He's like, yeah!
Yeah! Oh, I mean, I knew you were going to talk about me, so...
Oh.
I was waiting for it. I was ready.
You ready for it?
Uh-huh.
This is like your 7th time on the show, right?
16th.
16th? Oh, I've lost count. I'm sorry.
Yeah, time flies.
Time flies. I feel bad. So, I put you in the sort of care about absorbs category because you have Power Word Shield, but you know...
I mean, unless you're going to put, like, Weaken Soul on the tank to mess up the Disc Priest pre-pull, then, you know.
Is that how it works?
Until they find out.
Oh.
And they tell you.
That sounds perfect. That sounds awesome. Well, happy to have you on the show again, sir.
Thank you for having me back.
And first timer, he's the fresh meat of the show. There's Malicrin from Limit. Hello, sir.
Hello, Final Boss. Hello, Bay. Hello, chat. Hello, everyone.
Are you ready to tell us how many bindings you have for Power Word Shield?
All of them.
Like 17. All your keybinds.
All of them are Power Word Shield.
Oh, okay. That's why you're on with Words of Mending, right? So at least you have other spells that actually fly out of you now and then?
Yes,
okay.
It has to be passive, though. We don't actually cast anything but Power Word Shield.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought. Good. Thank you for clearing that up.
Jack, just so you know, we do notice Weaken Soul on the tanks.
You're caught out, Jack. Red-handed. Or, yes.
I had to work once. And then they start gripping your hem, and then you're just like hating life.
Oh, that's not like dirty.
Or anything.
It is dirty.
It's Ant Magic, okay? We gotta get like the proc, and then
hey,
it
we're
goes
disciplined priests. We have to heal dirty.
Oh, jeez. And laughing in the corner, waking up super early for this. There's Relil. Welcome back to the show, sir. Good morning.
Hello. Hey,
Across the pond. Now, you just, like, heal everyone in the raid by only healing one person. That's how it works, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. I just, you know, you don't need crazy absorbs. You don't need to worry about that, because you just heal everybody.
Yeah, I just put my beacons on all the girls, keep them alive.
Yeah, right. That sounds right, yeah. You don't have to worry about any of these weird bubble shenanigans. You actually heal people, you keep them alive, exactly.
Yeah, and just everyone I heal gets a bubble. It's like...
well, yeah, a little bit of a bubble. A little bit. Absolutely. Well, welcome, everyone. And we're gonna hopefully break down all this nonsense that's been happening in Tier 18 and talk about rings and talents and stuff and things. So, I think we'll start right off with the bat with the segment called When Last We Spoke. And we'll kind of go around with the intention of doing both of the priest and then the paladin to kind of keep it organized. I was going to go like priest, pally priest, and it'd be like, it's kind of weird. So, Jack, Holy Priests,
Sure.
How is Tier 18 shaped up? Gearing, weapon, enchant, focused, enchanting, and gemming, thoughts on your Tier 18 set bonuses. How's it all worked out so far? Words.
Tier 18's kind of rough. In terms of like gearing and weapon choices, obviously like the Archimon main hand, the Gavel of the Eridar, and then you want to have the offhand that is from Gorfiend, which is the Hungry Maw, Devouring Maw, something like that. Crit multi-strike. Enchanting is always going to be towards multi-strike. Gearing is always towards multi-strike. There's not any kind of cap that we can really reach. At the moment, Tier 18 4 set is like really bad. It averages out to like 1.5, 1.2 extra palm bounces, even though it looks kind of cool. Tier 18 2-set is like an extra 6% haste, which is always nice. It's been kind of rough though. When a lot of other classes have been getting some amazing like set bonuses or class trinkets, and then ours is kind of unusable, and our best in slot is tier 17's old 2-set. So
You're not still using that though, are you?
oh yeah, all
Really?
12, 13. Yeah.
What? So like, what do
12, 13
you?
so far? All using it.
So do you run like 2-piece tier 18, 2-piece tier 17?
Yep. Gloves and shoulders at the moment for tier 17 2-set.
Mm-hmm.
And
So-
then if you can get Countenance of the Revenant off Zolarak, then you'd use that helm, and then you use the tier chest off Manaroth, and the tier chest off of Gorefiend. Or tier legs off Gorefiend.
Tier legs, yeah.
Yeah.
That's I didn't know that. We don't have a holy priest. We just have one, and he's just disciplined all the time. Because obviously, if you're gonna have a priest in the raid, only one of them, it should be disciplined.
Gibbering Madness.
Gibbering madness. Yeah. So what is that? Why the 2-piece from old tier and the 2-piece from new? Like, how does that work together?
So tier 18 2-piece is just haste. It's just flat haste, you know? Paladins and we can kind of get along with that. Just having some flat haste. Nothing really changes us up. The tier 17 2-set is just 4 extra palm bounces, which is awesome.
Wow.
And tier 18 4-set, the wording on it is that whenever it bounces, it has a chance. It's like 10% chance to proc split. So how Prayer of Mending works right now is Prayer of Mending 5-stack is on a target. It heals the target A. 4 bounces go to target B. But when this splits, then it heals target C immediately, and then it gives him a 3-stack. Which sounds really cool. You're like, oh, cool, it could split off extra bounces based on how many are already on the target. But considering it's a 10% chance, and it's really unrealistic to be like hunting down your palm bounces to stack them up higher, it really sucks. So it averages out to like 1.2 extra palm bounces.
That's
Pretty garbage.
That's awkward.
It needs to be at least like 35 to 40% chance to split.
Yeah, it sounds like it
In
needs a
order for it
better
to be
chance to fork out into the raid.
Mm-hmm.
Because your 2-set you said from tier 17 is just like palm bounces 4 more times.
4 times. Just flatline. That's all it is.
Does it add more charges to it? So when you throw it out, does it have 9?
Yeah. It just starts off as a 9-stack instead
Wow.
of 5-stack, and you can stack it up to 14 instead of the 10 that you used to be able to.
Oh, like the pole, you can stack it up?
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, that's...
Yeah, it's pretty crap.
There's no like throughput issue or having like the huge less amount of int or spirit, or does it? I guess just int on
It's made up for by the extra palm bounces.
Wow.
I mean, ideally, you'd want to have that in your tier 18 4-set, but it's not good enough. So some of these fights, like if you look at Mythic Iskar, whenever you pass the ball around, you get the dot still. Like
Sure.
everybody gets it permanently. So that's a huge activator for palm anyway. So everybody has little tiny bits of damage, but it's enough to activate Prayer of Mending.
Sure.
So it
just
is insane.
Flies around the raid. Wow.
Yeah.
That's kind of weird. So is there any other weird little tidbits you found out in HFC? I mean, that's a pretty weird tidbit right there. You're running 2-piece, 2-piece. So...
Surge Divine Star is insane.
Oh, here
once
it
you have the
comes.
spirit-
Here it comes. I heard about this. What's this now?
Okay, so for your talents, I guess we'll get into talents a little bit more later, but for 9 or 10 of the 13 bosses, you're going to be taking Surge of Light and Divine Star. And neither of the talents are like super amazing by themselves, but Divine Star is like the activator for Surge of Light, so you can get all these free flash heals out of just throwing your star through the raid. So that's the biggest thing for Holy like right now, besides like Phylactery in terms of playstyle, is like Phylactery plus Surge Divine Star, and we can do throughput heals.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't talk about anything like that during the tier 17 portion, like earlier on this expansion. That's kind of a cool
We didn't have the mana to afford
evolution. Yeah.
Yeah. It really
Interesting.
is. We didn't really have the mana to afford it. We didn't really have the fights favoring it, but when so many times that you're stacked up enough, it's just like super strong.
All right. Well, I'll kick it over to the Discipline Priest now, which apparently doesn't have any cool mechanics. All they do is bowl everyone, right? Mal, how does Discipline shaping up in tier 18?
Well, tier 18, there's not really a big playstyle change. We're still doing the same thing with our Evangelism, keeping both of those spells on cooldown, Solace and Penance, which is going to activate our Archangel. The major playstyle change comes from dropping the tier 17. A lot of Discipline Priests are going two-piece, like Jack said.
Oh, wow.
So I actually still have two-piece. I'm still using it in my raids currently. So the playstyle change will come when you drop the tier 17 two-piece. And then you'll have to smite for evangelism. And adding smite into the rotation is mildly annoying. It takes away from the time that you can be casting Power Word Shield, which everyone loves.
Right.
So anything that lets you cast less Power Word Shield is generally bad. But using the tier 18 four-piece, it's actually very helpful. It's a HPS increase for you. It's very good single target throughput healing. So making that sacrifice is definitely worth it.
What is the... Now, because the set-bonuses are different, what is the two-piece tier 17 still giving discipline that is, like, too good to, like, drop immediately for tier 18? What's the hold-up there?
Right, so the tier 17 two-piece set bonus for discipline says that anytime you cast Penance, you gain a stack of Evangelism, and your Penance has an additional tick on it. So the important part there is the Evangelism. If you Penance the tank, you'll get a stack of Evangelism. Now, if you don't have the set bonus, you don't get any Evangelism. You have to Penance the boss for that.
Right.
So what you're doing is you're penancing the tank on cooldown, and you're casting Solace on the boss on cooldown, and that'll get you to the magic number of 5 Evangelism stacks every time you need it.
Interesting.
So when you go to the four-piece of tier 18, now all of a sudden you have to either penance the boss, which nobody likes doing, or you have to cast Smite, which also is annoying. So there's the playstyle change there.
I wonder, I notice Carl, our Discipline Priest, and I see he does a lot of, like, random smiting. He's a little dwarf, and he runs around, he's like, bah, 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 and I see it. So I wonder, he's probably already swapped over because he's casting smites often, or he's just trying to get the evangelism up at the beginning of a pull. Normally, I don't know what he's doing. I don't know priest things. Is there still, like, this rotational thing when you get your 5-stack and you pop wings? Do you always, like, run with, like, the crazy crit or free power prayer of healing and then just go into, like, a cascade? Like, is it like a rotational thing, or do you time things differently now with tier 18, or?
No, what you're doing inside of your Archangel is pretty much the same. You definitely want to get off your prayer of healing. It's a guaranteed crit. It's going to be 25% stronger if you do it inside your Archangel. So that's one thing that you're definitely doing. And the rest of the time, you're pretty much just spamming Power Word Shield, to be honest. That 18 seconds of Archangel is your God mode, so you need to take as much advantage of that as possible, spread as many shields as possible. I'm of the opinion that the 18 seconds on, you should be casting Power Word Shield, and then you have 12 seconds of off time, kind of downtime before your next Archangel comes around. I think that in the 12 seconds, that's when you should be casting your smites. So it might be that you're seeing your priest in his 12 seconds of downtime, he's spamming smite to rush his evangelism stacks up so they're ready for the next Archangel. You mentioned Cascade, which is kind of a thing of the past now for Discipline Priest. Most Discipline Priests are running Halo. Yeah, Halo's the go-to talent in that tier.
That has definitely changed.
Yes,
I think it used to be Cascade tier 17, like...
Very true. They made a change to Cascade that was supposed to fix it. And in doing so, they actually broke it. So what's happening now with Cascade is that it bounces to pets a lot more than it used to.
Crap!
And you also have this problem where a lot more classes have these pets, like these druids have these Fey Moonwings with their set bonus, and your Cascade starts to bounce to them, and that's just a wasted heal. So Halo's really the way of the future and the present for Discipline Priests.
This is like devil's advocate here, with that new change, does Cascade bounce to, like, the stampeded hunter pets?
Yes, it will bounce to hunter pets, it will bounce to shadow fiends, it will bounce to water elementals, it bounces to all that annoying stuff, and it's really doing nothing.
Yo, that is awful! That is really bad! Because they don't take damage anyway. Most pets have, like, an 80% resistance to AoE, so they don't take damage Why did that happen?
That's their fix.
What? That is really bad. I didn't know that was happening.
Mind-boggling, isn't it? Yeah.
I mean, my Discipline Priest is like a total scrub nub. Just hit 100 finally off of XP from the garrison, basically, because all I do is log on her and do enchanting stuff and log off. So like cascading like 5-mans is great. Like all over the place, it bounces everybody, it feels wonderful. But that in raids, that I mean you can get your first hits on real people, and then all the other like 8 hits will be on garbage.
Garbage.
That is really bad.
Well, it's not
For
terrible.
real.
It's not completely worthless, but
Sure.
Halo is leaps and bounds better at the moment.
And Halo actually heals people in the raid.
Yes, and there's currently a kind of healing meta, which is more bursty healing.
Right.
You see people drop down and get topped up really quickly, and
Yep.
Halo's very good for that style of healing as well.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue we'll get into this a little more in the healer discussion, so I guess I'll just throw that out the window for now. So, and I'll go over to Relil about Holy Paladin stuff. Or I guess, yeah, it's so... I'll leave that. I want to ask a question, but I'll wait for Relil's responses for Tier 18 stuff, and then I'll ask the question. So, Relil, Holy Paladin stuff. How's things for Tier 18 changed for you? Or evolved, or whatever?
Other than like we had to drop like last tiers, so tier 17. Pretty much every Holy Paladin used that and had that like whack-a-mole heal style. So it's just like Light of Dawn and then Eternal Flame back and forth. The new tier, pretty much what happens is the 2-piece is just like a flat beacon increase to healing, and then also haste for 4-piece. You kind of really want the weapon of Archimond with the offhand from Manarath, and then you try and get 2-piece. 2-piece is kind of like a must, and then 4-piece is like if you can get it comfortably, like while getting the right sets. Purely based on the fact that like some of the items are just better than others. Some in Warforged and some in not. Like it's hard to depend with the whole like Diablo loot system, where it just can roll better.
Right.
Let's say you get an item, it just might be better even if it has the worst stats on it, like lesser stats on it, just because it has like Warforged and a socket. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Are you speaking toward the fact that like that two-handed healer and casting mace is used by a lot of Holy Paladins right now? I think you are using it right now too, right?
Yeah, so I'm using that one because we haven't had one from Archimond drop, and I'm
Right.
taking that first in our guild, whether people like it or not. And pretty much, so we want the mace from Archimond just because of this pure spell power, but also the one-hand offhand is a better combination. Yeah.
Okay. I was actually kind of wondering if that felt for Holy Paladins a cool option that they gave you a spell power two-hander. I didn't know if that like felt like I'm Uther, but I didn't know if it was just because it's like a placeholder and the one-hand offhand is still a better combination.
Personally,
It's cooler.
It's cooler.
Personally, I hate two-handers. I hate healing with a two-hander. We were wiping for a bit on Gorfin this week for our farm. Don't know why, but we were, and I actually had to swap to my shield and one-hander because it was annoying me so much. I like downgraded.
You just didn't like how it looked on your model?
Yeah, it really annoyed me.
To not have a shield on your back?
The visual effects are too strong.
Yeah, I mean, if you
I
don't
thought you were
look
gonna
cool...
say something like the extra armor from your shield would keep you alive from this mechanic or something. Just like
Oh, no, I don't. That would be a little bit interesting.
that bleeding edge rating. Just like
Right.
That was in
pro strategies.
Right,
He's hiding
exactly.
it, you know.
That was in Heart of Fear. That was Heart of Fear. I did that. Yeah, all the physical damage.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't even factor that in. I just thought that, like, I mean, obviously, if you have like heroic weapons offhand, and then you get like the mythic two-hander, then I guess the mythic two-hander probably have better overall stats. So that's probably why you have to hold it through. So now, why was your like you had this weird way about getting the 4 set? Is the 4 set in tier 18 fine? It just kind of feels like on paper it's kind of like eh. And what offset do you use then in that realm?
So the only 2 tier pieces that are actually better than any other piece that there is in HFC is the helm and the gloves. So that's 2 piece there that you definitely want. And then the other 3 they have better options. So the shoulders from Archimond. I should definitely know where the other 2 drop. The chest from Iron Reaver, and then there's the legs from somewhere else. And pretty much those 3 off pieces, if you get all 3 of them, versus all 3 of the tier, they're stronger. They're all stronger. But the thing is, 4 piece, it's pretty much like a passive 8% haste. So it's still, you still want to try and go for it, like if you can get it.
Right.
So it like really comes down to what drops and like what you can get your hands on, which is always important. Yeah. So like I have the chest from Iron Reaver. Whatever you do, just don't use the shoulders because the ones from Archimond is like so much better, if you can get them. But it's just like I have the chest that's warforged and socketed, I believe, and so there's no, like me using the tier chest that isn't warforged or socket is just like a massive loss.
Right.
Like because it's all so close that it really comes down to what you get.
What are you gemming and stuff and enchanting still for as a Holy Paladin?
Pretty much just full crit and then use Thunderlord once you get the phylactery because you don't have mana issues.
I see, yes. I mean, that'll roll us right into a nice segue into the healing situation in Draenor. And I was going to bring up that out of the 3 different Trinity parts of a MMO, the raiding side, so the tanking, the DPS, and the healing, I kind of feel like from the outside in, because I know how the DPS disparities are right now from the top to bottom, are just like, bruh. And the tanking is always kind of like swings with every patch and every hotfix. The healing looks like it might be the best it's been in a long time, because there's not a ton of just triage, extra bouncy poop healing like it was in MOP, right? There's no close going off, there's no all these residuals, all the support healing from other classes is much nerfed. So do you all feel that it's the best it's been? Is it good? Is it well, where is it at for you, Jack? We'll go around again. Like the healing situation in Draenor.
Tier 17 was pretty good. I'd say like tier 18 has been more fun to heal because I can use every single spell in my spellbook, which I couldn't in tier 17 because mana. But a lot of times, like tier 17, I think was pretty well balanced. Generally, I mean, in terms of like HPS throughput and stuff like that, it wasn't too bad. In terms of what you needed from your raid group, we got to the whole Priest double Holy Paladin, which, you know, is what it is. Now with how much Beacon overheals is going to more, you know, 1 Holy Paladin, still super good. But when we are in this tier, it's more and more about the burst damage and more about who can top it off really quick and who won the lottery of tier 18 bonuses,
right?
And class trinkets. So baseline, we're not that bad. Like, I don't think the balance is too awful. I think it's pretty good. It's certainly a lot better than it was in MOP. But at least from a holy perspective, I kind of want to see a little bit more. Because having to take old tier and like stick with old tier forever, like they fixed tier 18 4 set for Dispriest, you know? And now it's become more of like a preference and what people want out of that for disc. But like with holy, it's baseline. Like you will be taking tier 17 2 set. Regardless of item level, actually. You could take like normal tier 17 and you would not replace it until you get mythic off pieces.
That's interesting.
Yeah. I'm not kidding about that. So you're going to have something from the last tier on normal quality that is better because you have that bonus. It is better than current content. Like they nerfed ULVS for a reason, for casters in MOP, you know, the Leisha and Trinket. They don't want people using old gear. So
I wonder if that is a proponent of the fact, though, that Warlords is only a 2-tier expansion. And where it might have sounded fun at first, like, yeah, we'll get a new expansion faster, which is just like this arbitrary made-up reason that Blizzard wants to make us have expansions faster. We don't need them. I think every expansion having 3 tiers helps that gear problem. Because if this tier was the final tier, you wouldn't probably be taking stuff from 2 tiers ago. Because like the gulf in overall just like int and spell power gain from that would probably be too much. But right now it was just 15 eye levels, man, whatever. So, Mal, what do you think?
Well, even when it's like 25, like from normal Blackrock Foundry to like heroic, and it was like that's pretty close together.
Yeah.
But like mythic's only when you know for sure kind of thing it would. So
it's less of a penalty for using stuff from last tier when it's only like this tier and last tier.
Yeah, that's true. That's fair.
I don't know if I really heard any of that during the Mists of Pandaria junkets for the show where people were using stuff in Siege from Throne outside of like the 2 trinkets or so.
Yeah.
Like Rune of Rejuvenation was used forever. but that was like one of the only outstanding ones. I don't think anyone really kept their set bonuses from the old tier. Mal, what do you think? Tier 18 or Warlords General healing situation in total? What do you? How's it panned out?
Well, I kind of agree with what Jack said. Being a two-piece user myself, the two-piece from Blackrock Foundry is just so good. It's hard to give it up. I have a 4-set in heroic gear from Hellfire Citadel, and I'm not using it because the two-piece from Blackrock Foundry, in my opinion, is just that good. So being kind of pigeonholed into that, you have to use the two-piece because it's that good. It's kind of underwhelming, to be honest. But the overall healing style, I think, is in a really good spot. I don't think that there's any necessarily bad healers. You maybe see holy priests underrepresented, but I think that they're very capable of putting up the HPS that other healers are at the same time. So overall, pretty good. I am a little bit miffed or disgusted with the Disciplined Priest playstyle at the moment. I have to say that I preferred the MOP Atonement style of disc healing. I actually felt like I was pressing more than just 4 buttons. If you put me in a raid and you told me I could only use Solace, Penance, Power Word Shield, and Archangel, I could heal just fine. I could probably still make it through Mythic raids at an acceptable level with just those 4 buttons. So I think that's a flaw in the design. So
now you can be. I'm assuming you've heard the news about the Legion changes, where we might be going back to more of the MOP style for Discipline, where they might become this like offensive holy caster that does damage and actually heals because of their damage, like constant Red Crane monk status.
yes.
So I wonder if it'll be the same thing happens with monk Red Crane though. Is like you're never going to bring a monk to be Red Crane an entire encounter. Because then why just don't bring either one other DPS or one other healer that can only going to do their job. So
Right.
I wonder what that's going to do to Discipline. It sounds cool. Maybe.
Sounds more interactive.
Right.
Well, I
A
think
lot more.
if they bring it back to the MOP style of atonement healing, as long as they don't bring the prayer of healing spamming along with it,
Oh, okay.
then I think it'll be fine. The problem that I saw in MOP was that you could spam prayer of healing for nearly the entire fight and build up massive Aegis on your entire raid.
Yep.
And you weren't punished for it. So that was the OP part in MOP for me. But the atonement style, I think, is a very, very interesting style, very interactive, and it lets you have fun in a different way as a healer when you're actually contributing to the DPS in a meaningful way.
Right. Well, I think that not every healer has this opportunity or this option to choose how and when they use their heals appropriately. Like, a monk now can go Jade Serpent or Red Crane based off phases of encounters, throughput needed, needing to get mana T stacks faster. You get it faster in Red Crane than you do in Jade Serpent. There's this in and out style of play. And, like, Resto Druids have that with, like, when they're in tree form, when they're not. It used to be a little different when they had, like, shape-shifting tree form is a little different now. But they still have, it feels like they have, like, an A and a B play style, and they can go back and forth between it. Whereas Discipline is just like, you said earlier, you spam shields when you're an Archangel, and then you don't when you're not. And that's
Right.
it. So
Yeah, it's very cut and dry.
yeah.
When I look at logs and compare myself to other players, you can look directly at the number of casts, and I say in my logs, okay, I did A, B, and C. Oh, look, they also did A, B, and C, but they healed more than me because they casted Power Word Shield more. And it's like, well, that's boring. Next time I go into the fight, my only advice for improvement is cast Power Word Shield more. Great.
And that's where I don't want to like cut Relil's rebuttal off from this, but I want to bring it up now. Do you feel that the absorb part of the game, as it currently stands, is a necessary tool or a necessary evil, depending on how you think about it, that is just needed to work because of how damage works? Like to have that extra buffer in taking damage, where like a shield feels like you give your other healers time to heal them after they take it, whereas obviously, as it happened before, shields get too powerful and then no one actually takes a lot of damage. And then fights like Tyrant Valhari have to exist that for one phase, shielding is amazing, and for the last one, like, you just need to have shields to help you not die because you have low health and not so much damage going on. Like, they make fights that force the need for that, but then the use of it is that okay? Or is shield spam still...
Well, I think shields are a good thing to have in the game. I don't think that they should get rid of them completely.
Okay.
I like the variety between heal over time spells, direct healing, and shields. What I think is wrong is the spam ability of Power Word Shield. I don't think it's right that we can blanket 15 players at a time with an extra 200k life. I don't think that's right. So I'd like to see some changes to the spam ability. Maybe give it a cooldown, maybe change it somehow. But I don't think it's a very engaging play style, and it makes all the other healers hate you. It's just all around.
I mean,
It's fun to be a disciplined priest, and it's
Sure.
really fun to be number one on the meters, but you're not making any friends, that's for sure.
and Relil starts laughing about that too, and I think that the shields that you get from a Holy Paladin is like after the Holy Paladin just healed you. So it makes sense. I mean, because you're not taking Sacred Shield, which only give to one person anyway, right? Like, you could, I suppose. But, like, that's not really... That, to me, feels more of, like, how an Absorb works. Like, it's a buff that lasts on you now and then, and you get a little bit of Absorbs here, and then it goes away, and it comes back, and goes away, and comes back. But, like... So it works in that regard, really. What do you think of the healing standpoint in Warlords and stuff?
Like, in terms of the bubble thing that we were just talking about, I personally feel like the fact that there are bubbles and disc priests in the game, Blizzard end up designing fights to compensate for that. So like the damage of some abilities, like the raid damage, you need shields for it, and therefore that forces the disc priest into your raid, no matter how annoying he might be. So you just have to take.
Ouch.
So you just have to take one disc, because that I feel like overall I like the fact that there's like a big, like, you have to take almost one of every class minus Holy Priest or Druid.
Right.
So you really need like the Shaman, like you need the versatility that each class brings to the raid, which I think is really good for this expansion. But now that Paladins have the double beacon, it's even better because there's no two Paladins coming into raid or anything.
Right. I mean, he did it earlier. Like Jack talked about that too. Earlier on in this expansion, double Paladin was really good because you needed the extra healing. And everyone was like lower gear and stuff like that. But it does... Like, I have been a big proponent for a long time, back when Power Word Shield had the cooldown, like Mal even suggested, that felt like you're going to heal someone, like you penance the tank, you're like, yeah, take it, and then you shield them. And you're like, okay, you're buffered for a little while, penance is a cooldown, other healers can hot you up, like, you're good. But then they removed the cooldown from PWS, and all you're doing is like, okay, there's half the raid, let's start over again. And that's all that's happening. And it just feels like it's a necessary thing to have now because they've balanced the game around it. So, like Jack said.
It's the fights. It's like when things are scaling. I mean, when you nerf Powered Shield 3 times expansion?
Right.
Yeah,
you know?
they keep nerfing it down, and it's still OP as ever.
Right.
And it doesn't feel like good to be nerfed. It's like, regardless of your situation, you're just like, okay, I'm gonna be weaker now. And I don't think that's ever like a fun thing to ever have happen.
Right.
So it's just like they identify what was the issue, or they identified these are what disc priests do, but they really haven't made many big changes, you know,
Well, they've
from
said
tier to tier.
Yeah, the past couple expansions, they've said, yes, disciplined priest healing is a problem, we're aware of it, and then they don't change it.
They don't fix it. Well, they try to fix it, and then they just make it worse.
Yes,
It's
they
great.
made it.
I
It's
think
just
that's
like-
one of the biggest things. They haven't really like told us what the design is. You know, we go into Warlords and they're like, we're gonna fix Atonement, and then they like gutted it and just ripped its heart out. You know, so it's just like, well, what was the plan? What do you want us to use instead of this? And they didn't. And it was just Powered Shield spam.
That's
know,
all
if you
you
look-
can use. I mean,
Well, that's all you
can't
got, yeah.
atonement heal anymore.
And they even like
yeah, it's not
they
good.
nerfed Nova like again in 6.1, which was really
oh,
funny.
Holy Nova, no!
Well, okay, so it was broken. It was
Oh.
broken
God.
in the end of Siege of Orgrimmar when they had
Hmm.
Mythic come out. That's
Mhm.
all you pushed, and then they nerfed it the second to last week before Warlords came out, and they nerfed it again in 6.1. So it was just like, now that you're definitely not using it, you're not going to use it again, kind of thing. So just like.
But they needed to nerf that though. So.
They
Well,
needed to nerf it the first time, but like people
Not
weren't
to the
really
point
using it.
where it is currently.
Yeah, exactly.
it kind of
It's
feel
currently like a never cast spell, and I don't think
That's
that
like
those
the
spells should
image,
exist.
right. like I've always thought Holy Nova should be this almost like reward button for healing, where spamming it is just like a healing version of Arcane Explosion. And of course, when you hit Holy Nova, the louder you yell Holy Nova, the more it heals for, of course, just let you know. But say if you build up your evangelism, and then you go into wings, that would activate Holy Nova, and then you just like have this boom, this first explosion of healing, and then you do other things, right? But you can only use it that one time, because right now it's just like I can get the rogue out of stealth in PvP. That's all you. It's such a cool possibility.
Yeah, you know what? I
But-
actually use Holy Nova actively. I use it for one scenario and one scenario only, and
Oh,
it's
this is gonna
for
be good.
AoE damaging. That's why I use Holy Nova.
Say you do it on Cormrock hands.
Yes, for our very first Cormrock kill, we were at the point where we needed to push DPS faster, so
There it
we
is.
made our DPS go single target damage, spec out of your AoE spec, do just the boss damage.
And let the
So-
Disc Priest take care of it.
Yeah, we
Oh well, that
AoE.
Take him down.
So I went ahead and did some Holy Nova spam, and those hands died right away.
Oh my gosh.
How much damage did you do?
Well, at the time it was 11,000 DPS, so 11k.
My.
But that's not boss damage. That's
Yeah.
pure
yeah.
hand padding with Holy
Pure
Nova.
AoE.
See,
Yeah.
That's what you gotta bring a Holy Priest, and then you have him go Red Chakra. And fun fact, our Mind Seer hits harder than Shadow Priest's Mind Seer when we're in Red Chakra.
I heard that. Yes.
No way.
Not good.
Shadow
Well-
Priests don't use Mindseer because of that, right? Like.
I don't know.
Shadow Priest's
Maybe
minds
with
are very, very,
insanity.
very, very.
Where's
little
Val when
bit.
you need him?
I don't think they'll ever use it again now because the buffs they just got.
Yeah.
So you can just powered shield everything. I mean, powered Shadow Paint everything. So yeah, Red Chakra, best chakra. Yeah. Yeah, it's. I mean, they just posted from Dragon Con that as of this recording and this being live, that a lot of classes are coming, and that is definitely true. And even some classes are going to be renamed. Like some specs will be renamed to better fit their fantasy. So we'll see. I mean, we got the crazy new talent system in MOP. We got the ability pruning, which was good and bad, depending on what class or spec you played in Draenor. And now we're getting this like re-fantasizing of our classes and specs.
I'm
So
pumped.
we'll have to see how well that pans out in the end, because it sounds wonderful on paper. So yeah, it sounds wonderful on paper. So I think rogues are unanimously. Can our combat spec be called Yar or something? Just make them pirates. So I guess I'll move. Right, yeah, it could be good. Give him a pistol and a sword. Make him just Cervantes from Soul Calibur, or Gangplank from League of Legends. That'd be great.
Isn't that already in an MMO?
I don't know, maybe. I'm
I
sure.
don't know if it's Final Fantasy or something. Yeah.
So after that, then we'll move on to the incredibly awesome, at least for one of you, Archimon trinkets. And we'll get into the trinket discussion. Relil is excited, so we'll start with him.
Yes.
So,
Let's go, baby.
So Archimon trinket, walk us through bonuses, pros and cons of the Archimon trinket for Holy Paladin.
So every time you Holy Shock, what the trinket does, every time you Holy Shock, it increases the heal of your Flashlight or your Holy Light by a certain amount for your next one, right? And so pretty much it's like Holy Shock, and then you cast the spell, and it's a lot bigger, which is good. And so it almost doubles it in Mythic. Well, it's better than doubling it in Mythic, and so it's just a lot more healing. The pros of it is that it's a hell of a lot more healing, and it can like top someone up from really low.
Yeah.
The con is morely the fact that most of the time it is overhealing. Like there's
Yeah.
some times where it's not, but there's a lot of times where it is overhealing,
Mm,
especially if you're using it in conjunction with the Flasher Light infusion buff.
But it's still like you use it, right? Like you don't. Is it set it and forget it though? Like do you loot
Yeah,
the
you still
trinket
use it, yes.
and then never take it
Yes.
off?
Yeah, you pretty much put it on and then never take it off. That's
That's how good it is. That's
pretty much it. Yeah.
Rocking it.
I feel
All
like
right.
I feel like at kind of. I was about to say for a second that you could use it. You might be able to get away with not using it at like fully best in slot gear and like low damage fights, but honestly, there's no point not to because you just get bigger shields. Yeah.
Right. Fair enough. That sounds all right. What trinkets do you pair best well with for Holy Paladins out of the next 4? That's kind of how this segment works. So there's the Monarch Phylactery, the Intuition's Gift, Unstable Fell Shadow Emulsion, and the Flickering Fellspark. So what pairs well? Do you have like a other trinket slot that you like swap around to a different one, or is it another set and forget motion here?
It's Arch Trinket and Phylactery. You never really change it. The only time you would change it is if you have a Leech Trinket on Gorefiend and you're struggling to heal, like you're doing prog. But other than that, it's really just Archmond and the Phylactery.
Now, the Phylactery is the one that just has int and haste, and spells are cheaper.
Yep, pretty much. The Shadow
It's like it makes me think back to the oh god, what was that offhand back in vanilla? The quintessence of something like that reduced your spell cost from like Ungoro Crater, and every healer in like AQ40 had that. Like over any other offhand in the game because the mana cost reduction is so good. So the mana cost reduction is like incredibly effective, I would imagine. Yep. So, interesting. Now,
keep up your disc bricks.
You brought up the Phylactery there.
Yep.
And then you brought up the Emulsion, which is the Leech Trinket, and you said for Gorefiend. Now, why is that for Gorefiend? I found this out literally on our 4th or 5th kill, 5th the other day, and I didn't know this happened. But the Leech proc works on the essences down below. Is that why you use it?
No.
Oh.
So the reason why I use it is because on prog, everyone's health tends to be a little lower than when you're farming, of course.
Right.
And what happens is the leech goes off the damage you do. So during the feast phase, when everyone's stacked, they all, because they're taking damage, the leech, like you're healing them, and they get the leech, and then they do more healing to themselves because they're doing a lot more damage.
Oh, okay.
So
they get the plus 200% boss damage or whatever it is.
Right. Yeah, it takes double damage.
And so then they also get plus 200% like leech of what they already had because it's doing twice as much.
Okay.
So, like it's only really good for prog as a paladin because it's a pretty bad trinket for them. They just can't, like, unless your tanks are dying a lot and they need a lot more self healing, which would be weird if you have a paladin, then it's never really useful.
You can spam Divine Radiance though.
What's that?
Holy Radiance. Holy Radiance.
Okay. Oh god. Yeah.
To get the leech out, but I guess it wouldn't be.
Are you able to use that with the class trinket?
Holy Radiance. Like the class trinket doesn't increase Holy Radiance, but like you wouldn't use Holy Radiance anyway. It just doesn't do enough healing to, like, one Holy Radiance does less healing than one Holy Light.
Yikes.
Overall,
right.
So.
Well, I was saying for getting more
if you have the
out
Archmon trinket, right?
Yeah.
Right. Oh,
even without the Archmon trinket.
Ooh,
this whole expansion, you don't really Holy Radiance. Like, the only time you do it is to, like, if there's, like, a full stack. So, because 50% of the... Now with 2-piece, you definitely don't. But before, let's say, without 2-piece, you have your 50%, you have your heal from Holy Light, and then 50% goes to one tank, 50% goes to another. It's technically, like, a 200% Holy Light. Whereas Holy Radiance, only 15% goes to the tanks.
That's true. That's fair.
Overall, it equals to be about the same amount, but one costs a hell of a lot more mana.
I guess my thought I was bringing up was that apparently the leech buff, it can be applied to the essences downstairs on Gorefiend when you're in his stomach, and when they
do anything.
Well, when
they don't.
When it comes up, apparently, this is what I was told, is that they damage themselves because their HP goes up. They actually have buff. They hit themselves with damage to like go out of the stomach, and the leech applies the heal to them because they kind of doing damage. So it helps, like, top off the essences down below. I don't know if that's... Could be confirmed, denied. That's what I was told. That's a way that you can heal the essences like 90%. And when they kneel down to come out of the stomach, they hurt themselves and heal themselves to full. And don't come out.
I don't know about that. I haven't seen that before.
Suplift says,
no response. I stay
or talking to something else. I don't know. So, he said to clean their guild, talking to someone else. So, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if that's true or not, but I thought that was an introduction, if it does work, because the leech buff does apply to the essences. So, we'll make some confirmation on that, but I'll keep going around. Mal, Archmon Trinket, and then other trinkets that work with Discipline.
Well, the Archimon Trinket is really, really bad for disc. First of all, it has no stats on it,
Of
and
course.
part of being a disciplined priest is that you are constantly healing.
Mhm.
So any trinket with stats on it is going to be giving you a benefit the whole time.
Mm.
Um, but the Archimon Trinket, it basically gives your target of your direct heals a damage reduction buffer. So
Right.
they'll take, I believe it's 9% or something like that, reduced damage for about 10 seconds. Um, so no stats and reduced damage maybe seems sort of okay, but it's really just not that good at all, especially in comparison to the other ones that you have available. I used the trinket one time and I instantly regretted it. It was awful. I'm never using it again.
It sounds like it'd be good in challenge modes.
Maybe. The no
You
stats thing
both
is
go
really,
like this, like,
Yeah.
it's
That's
such a
scary.
huge turnoff having no stats on it.
Yeah.
Is it really? That's
Yeah, so
unfortunate. So then, what do
what
you
I
run for
do
trinkets
like
then? Yeah.
is the phylactery. It's very good, especially for classes that spam a lot. So if you have reduced mana cost on your spells and you're casting 60 spells a minute in comparison to someone who's casting longer spells is only casting maybe 30 spells per minute, you're going to get more mileage out of the trinket that way.
Sure.
So spamming Power Word Shield is going to be very useful for you with that trinket. It also plays into the Cascade versus Halo debate that we
Ah.
talked about a little earlier. Halo's always been good. Its downfall is that it's very expensive and it is very positionally required. You have to be positioned properly to use it. So on a lot of fights, you'll see me maybe run out of the stat group like a crazy person and run into the fire just so I can cast off a massive halo. But it's definitely worth it for that. So the first trinket I would use is Phylactery for sure, and the second one is a kind of a toss-up between Intuition's Gift. It does the increased critical strike thing,
Mm-hmm.
and that happens every 1.5 minutes. So with your power infusion on a 2 minute cooldown, those kind of sort of line up. You have to wait 30 seconds, which makes it not that great, but having an extra crit buffer during your power infusion is very, very good. The third trinket that I use is actually a caster trinket, so I have to
Right.
fight all
Yeah.
of the boomkins and the warlocks for the desecrated Shadow Moon insignia. But
Ooh.
thankfully, I bonus rolled it because priests can do that with DPS trinkets that paladins can't unfortunately do.
Rip Paladins and
Switch
Blackhawk
to,
Foundries.
yep, switch to Shadow Spec, and I rolled a socketed desecrated Shadow Moon insignia, so I'm very thankful for that.
That's the
Uh,
mastery proc one, right?
it has flat mastery stats, and then it has an intellect proc
Oh,
on it.
intellect proc.
So
Other round. Other round.
yes,
Okay.
both very good for disciplined priests. It's gonna give you everything that you need to be spamming shields. And the reason that I would switch between Intuition's Gift and the Desecrated Shadow Moon Insignia is just on fights with big burst damage that comes on a cooldown, like Gorfine, for instance, we've talked about. Every 3 minutes, you're going to be getting that feast. So if you can line up your Intuition's Gift with the feast, that's going to be very strong healing.
Now, the DSI procs not on heals though? It has to be on damage spells. So would you actually have to like will it only proc off Solus hits the boss, or do you actually penance or when you're smiting? I suppose only time it can proc, right? For the
Actually,
proc.
it does proc on healing.
It,
So a lot of those trinkets that have wordiness and get kind of verbose in their proc requirements,
right.
I usually will try to get one and test it out or find other priests that have been using it and ask them, hey, does this work on healing spells? And most of the time the answer is yes. So it does work on healing spells. It procs just fine. It
Wow.
actually has a very high proc rate. I've been very surprised with how much it procs, so I'd recommend giving it a try if you can.
Interesting. Does the trinket say your attacks?
I don't know what it says word for word off the top of
Okay.
my head, but most of the DPS trinkets will say your attacks have a chance to proc this,
Right. I think
and then you just have to
attacks.
you have to go in yourself and decide, okay, does it work on healing?
Right.
Yes, this one does.
I've heard. I think attacks is a word that like means healing spells too. Like it's your abilities you cast. Yeah, it's weird. DSI says your spells and abilities. Okay, so that's even more easily to know that it's on healing too. Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Interesting. All right, Jack.
What's up?
Your turn. What's up? Yeah.
Prepare the tears.
So Archimon Trinket, and then other ones you use as holy.
The Archimon Trinket is garbage. There's no reason to use it. It's an HPS loss to use it, and I haven't been able to find any scenario where it can be used. I talked to Ask Mr. Robot a while back as the tier came out. Initially, their rating for it on the best in slot list was 6th, like of top rated trinkets. And we kind of talked, and it's now 67th.
67.
Below like Baleful,
That's
Versatility,
like last
whatever.
tier.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's worse. It's worse than like I think
last
normal
expansion
trinkets on their
even.
ratings.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it is aptly rated.
Crap.
So yeah.
And why is that? Because what does it do?
Okay, so it's a heal increase, but it has a price tag. So you have to stay in Sanctuary Chakra, which is kind of dumb, because Sanctuary is your AoE chakra, whereas you could use Serenity Chakra as your holy word. You could use that to give like a chance for more crits. You have this gigantic heal. So like maybe if you're ultra desperate and for some reason your guild doesn't have a holy paladin or a disc priest to actually heal touch of harm targets or something, you could like maybe heal them a lot with like a Serenity into this 3-second long casted heal. Oh yeah, and it costs more mana for some reason. And it's a slower cast.
Slower cast, heals for more,
I
but
think it's
costs
like
more mana.
2.8 seconds, 2.6 seconds, something like that when I was on PTR. I've been really lucky. I coin roll like Archimon pretty regularly. I never got the
Starfire.
Trinket. You know, they're like, hey, do you want this? I'm like, you can disenchant that. It's probably more valuable that way.
That's so weird. I mean,
Yeah.
these trinkets are all experimental, and they kind of make or break certain people. Like the Handsome Shaman one, I use it on almost every single fight, because it obviously makes Wind Fury not like you're throwing pool noodles at the boss, so it helps a good bit, because Wind Fury is very iconic to Handsome Shaman, and it actually makes it not terrible. But other classes, like you just explained, like Holy Paladin one is like, give me that.
And it's alright. Yeah.
And then both of you, and even Shadow Priest, they're all, Priest in general are like, this is garbage truck tier.
I think Shadow can use it now after those buffs, or
They
can use
can,
it more.
but still using like 2 fights.
Single
Well,
target
okay,
shadow,
so-
I think, is a minor increase.
Yeah.
Well, what they said is they wanted it to be situational, right?
Sure,
Like,
of course, of course.
like 1 or 2 fights is great, but then there's like a disparity between some people use it on every single fight, some people never use it. So, like,
Exactly. So what other trinkets do
good.
you use then? What trinkets do you use?
Demonic Phylactery, always. Intuition's Gift is your pad trinket, if you're trying to rank or something like that. If you're on farm, that's okay. Your progression trinket should 100% be Unstable, Fell Shadow, Emulsion. The Leech trinket is like stupid strong. I always outpace the Shaman, I always outpace the Druid. I haven't really healed with any Mistweavers with the Leech trinket to see how my Leech varies versus theirs. So like it doesn't show up on meters, but there's add-ons, there's weak auras, there's a bunch of different tools. I think
Warcraft
Ask Mr.
logs.
Robot's logs are tracking it now, I think.
I would assume Warcraft logs tracks it. Yeah.
They don't. Warcraft
No, it
logs.
doesn't actually. Doesn't really.
I'm not sure what the debate was. They just like couldn't do it or something. So
I would imagine that the DPSers see their leech healing from each individual leech
Yes.
buff, but it just gives a spell ID.
but it's
It doesn't
not
actually
who
know who it's.
contributes the
Right,
leech.
that's what I mean. That's what I
So.
mean. Yeah. That's unfortunate.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, it's a weird
So I
thing.
think like I've had like a 40. The highest I've had out of it is like Zakoon, where it was like a 45% HPS increase.
Ooh.
So it did like 55k something HPS on its own, and I
That's
was the
not
only
too
one
bad.
with Trinket.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's not bad. Doesn't sound
Yeah.
too bad. Yeah, it's a weird realm. I think they did some really cool trinket designs where each echelon of the game sort of has like these, like a stat stick. Everyone has a stat stick. They have like 2 kind of proc passives and like 1 kind of really interesting interactive-y gooby one. Like I have the soul capacitor, right? Strength, DPS, not so much. They had just Fell Cleave and the empty drinking horn. Like, like they're not as cool. And it seems like that kind of bled over into all the different realms. Like a tank one has like the haste, like the weird like built-in DR trinket and stuff like that. So, or the one that does ridiculous amounts of damage. So, it's cool how they've done that, and there are enough options. And people always ask me like, you know, Bay, what do I use for enhanced shaman trinkets? And I'm like, you want all 4 of them because they're situational.
That's pretty good.
Yeah,
I like that most healers don't have to roll on like DPS trinkets. Like from playing paladin on the side. I was trying to get Gorin Soul Repository from Orgorger, and like I couldn't because I can't coin roll it. So I'm like waiting for all the DPS to get it.
Yeah.
And then like hoping there's not a tertiary that gets on it. They're like, it's avoidance, it's an upgrade. I'm just like, oh, please.
I kind of wonder,
you know, like
Yeah,
it wasn't that
I'd
bad
still
playing
be waiting
Holy,
for DSI if I didn't bonus roll it.
Yeah, exactly. Like at least priests can go shadow to roll on it, you know.
Right.
So I'm glad that they changed that up.
I wonder if they
will
will squelch that in the future, like if they will make it so that you like trinkets will then be almost like spec limited. They're really pushing
that's
like
what it is a phylactery.
Yeah, I think they've done that for some classes.
Yeah.
So I like that they're doing
Some
that now.
trinkets.
So I feel like they're really
saying,
trying
like,
to
mages, we're gonna take phylactery for
Arcane mages.
arcane
yeah.
mages.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shadow Void 2.0.
Mhm.
Thankfully,
Oh,
that
man.
didn't happen.
So I wonder if that'll evolve into Legion. But
Hope so.
Speaking about evolutions, the Orange Ring, gentlemen, evolution of gameplay, such a good system. Oh, it's amazing. So Aether Alice is the eternal
Aetheralis?
reward. Aetheralis?
Aetheralis?
Aetheralus?
Legendary.
The legendary ring for you guys. It is interesting. Abusable? Good? Bad? What kind of situation do you use it in? Do you use it as like a raid cooldown replacement now? Like how does it work? And I'll just start back at Jack and we'll go around the table again. How does it do what it do?
It's kind of funny with Holy Priests because our Divine Hymn is also like a built-in Ant Magic, or the OG Ant Magic.
Yeah, right.
Actually. So I told my guild that if I get to use the ring, it also will buff. The buff will continue into, say, the Druid's Trank. So I can hymn with the ring, and then she can trank, and she'll have all this HPS's increases.
Oh,
So-
how generous of you.
I know, I just care.
I just care.
So sometimes they let me do that, and then other times they like, no, we're using it here. But it's kind of odd of a trinket or of a ring because of the fact that like everybody has a different time they want to use it. So like Disc will want to use it before the damage happens, but everybody else
On the
wants to use it, like,
pre-pull.
during the pre-pull.
I want to use it like at 6. The other healers are like, what are you doing?
Use it before you even pull the boss. Just blank at the raid.
Yeah. So it's whatever. Like I don't think it's that fun because it just like everyone starts overhealing, and then there's like kind of sort of shields. I'm glad that the shields weren't that strong, but I'd rather just not have the trinket and not have the ring and have people fight over it.
Yeah. It's.
So,
I mean,
it kind of just causes problems.
some people argue that the older incarnation of it, where like you pop the buff and the buff jumps around to different people, was like a better possible option. It sounded better for like maybe DPS because it just kind of evens out over the course of time. But like for healing, it like your Holy Paladin gets it, and the other healer gets it, and the other healer gets it. And you get it like last, and there's no healing to be done. You're kind of like, okay,
It's all about control. Like you don't
Right.
want to have something random.
sure.
I mean, it was kind of like with random, like for the metagem in MOP, like you could spam, your expensive stuff. You could spam powered shields outside of Rapture as Disc or something like that, and you had free
Yes,
powered
that's exactly
shields.
what we did during the
Yeah, and
clarity.
then-
That was what you're supposed to do. Power
Yeah.
shield.
And then you had like times where you'd have the cloak buffs. You could like him during the cloak buff, and then like you wouldn't overheal, or it was cool stuff like that, where you could like maybe wait an couple extra seconds on your him or something like that. Be like, okay, come on, I know you're gonna proc, and then you him. It's awesome. But with this, it's like you only have one time you can use it, and someone's always gonna be unhappy.
Well, it's funny you say that because the exact same happens for DPS because some people
I think it's
line up
worse for
cooldowns.
DPS.
Some people line up cooldowns just fine. Other people like can't line it up. It's always the greatest when we pop the ring like a little bit delayed after the second use. So it's like 2.5 minutes in. So it's like it runs out 10 seconds before I can ascend, and I'm like, yay.
Even though isn't it tied together now? Isn't Ascendance like 2 minutes with the ring?
Ascendance is 2 minutes for Elemental Shaman.
The loved ones.
The loved ones. Their Ascendance arguably does so much less than Enhancements too, and it's kind of just weird. It'd been too good if Enhancement had it. Ooh, too good. So, I don't know. I've had like a 17 million soul capacitor on Cormrock into the ring before, so it's hilarious to see him lose like 8% HP. But it's still weird. But Mal, how about you? How does it work out? What do you think of the legendary ring?
Oh, well, there's two parts to the legendary ring, and it's important to understand both parts as a disciplined priest. The
Ooh,
first
okay.
part is that it increases your healing and absorption by a flat amount for 15 seconds. And then the next part is the proc part, is that it gives you your raid a shield based on the throughput healing that you've done. So the proc part doesn't apply to shields at all. Any power word shields that I cast that are being used, none of that matters for the proc. So basically, the proc for discipline is useless. What we do like is the increased absorption on the buff itself when it's popped for 15 seconds. So if you put me in charge of the ring, I'm going to use it to creep shield when there's no damage going out, and the other healers aren't going to get any throughput healing whatsoever. So it's very, very strong in that regard. But in terms of actual raid usefulness, you probably shouldn't let your disc be the one in charge of it.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Okay. And that's from a disciplined priest too. That's like, woo. All
Yeah,
right.
a lot.
Well,
for this,
it
guys.
does make your pre-shields very, very strong. I'll give it that
Right.
much.
I mean, you're at the 30-ish% one right now, probably 30 point something integer.
Yeah, I
imagine.
have 30% exactly increased
Right.
shielding.
It's a pretty big
You guys
deal.
at the point where your shields cap yet, or not yet?
If I haven't noticed it with Power Word Shield, but I have noticed it with Clarity when I run Clarity of Will. My base Clarity will be 100k, and then a crit will be 200k, and it caps out just above 300k. So if I get a crit and multi-strike Clarity of Will, I can very, very nearly cap out in just one cast.
One cast. That's
Yes.
during the ring, right? During the ring?
No, that's actually not during
Not
the ring.
during the
So
ring.
if I was to get a lucky proc during the ring, I'm sure I could probably cap out in one cast, absolutely.
Phew. Nice.
That'd be nice.
And all those extra absorbs that you get.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Well, that's if you take Clarity of Will, which
Mhm.
is kind of a no-no for me personally.
But we'll get into that in a minute.
Sure.
So, Relil, orange ring for
Uh,
Holy Paladins, go.
So I like it because I can use it with my wings, and because I am the healing officer and I call raid cooldowns.
There it
gets used
is.
with my
Yes, you.
wings.
How
there
good
it
it
is.
must be to be in that position.
Honestly, we don't really like 90% of our raid didn't even get the ring until like phase 3 Archimon, so we didn't do any of the fights using the ring like based off that. So because of that, we like on farm we pretty much just use it when we want. Like just any healer just mashes the button and we're like, oh cool. Like no one, we don't really care. I know on Archimon though we did end up like on a rort. If you use it just as the rorts go out, it puts a shield on for the last rort in Mythic. So that's amazing. Like that's what we found was really good. Because then you had the healing buff throughout the entire rort, and then you had a big shield at the end. But with the timing of rort, you couldn't do that for 2 in phase 2. So you only got to pick a 1 rort where you're allowed to do it for, and then yeah, it was pretty
Well, I
inconvenient.
mean, no one should be hit by Rot Chaos.
Oh, it's still just a 1 hit can kill people if they're
Of course,
standing in dogs and
Does
stuff.
Yeah.
does the ring double dip for paladins?
Ooh, that's a good question.
With the
does it, like,
damage.
It increases your heal of holy light and then increases the shield off that holy light or something?
Yes, it does.
Ooh.
And then because the heal gets increased as well. It's pretty strong.
A little bit.
But just a little strong. But like honestly, we're already at the point where heals are like you're pretty much going holy shock and then flashing if it crits, and so that's whether you have the ring or not. That's going to top someone to 100%.
Yeah.
So the rest of it's really just overhealing, because like no one needs more than like a 350k heal every few seconds.
Right, yeah, well, unless you're a Guardian Druid.
Oh, then they heal themselves.
They
They
need,
heal
they need
themselves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those guys don't take damage
Boss.
ever.
Yeah, you need a couple of those heals. You need a couple of them. So, that sounds pretty good. I think overall, outside of the weird timings and depending on what your spec benefits from, it's good to have that delineation there. So, I'll move us on to talents. If I just noticed the timing, we are kind of like, we need to make sure we get enough time for the Q&A part of the show. So talents now. We'll go back around the corner. We'll do Holy Priest, Disciplined Priest, and Holy Paladins. So, looking at Disciplined Priest talent, Holy Priest talents first, sorry. What what is sort of changed, Jack? Again, you want to go through the Surge Star nonsense?
Surge D-Star.
Surge D-Star.
So previously in High Mall Blackrock Foundry, you were using like Cascade Mindbender. I could see you kind of using Solace for like very long fights at the very, very beginning where you had no mana whatsoever. But now what we're kind of getting into in Hellfire Citadel is we have so much spirit and so much to kind of work with that it's really, really huge using Surge and Divine Star together. So I'm running with like 2k spirit and then Mythic Phylactery. So I think the average is like 2,900 spirit, 3k spirit if you factor in like cast per minute and then the discount you get from it. But regardless, it is extremely, extremely strong using Surge and Divine Star. It's on like 9 or 10 of the 13 fights. If you can stack people up, like Surge Divine Star is awesome.
So now, how Surge works is your healing spells and Smite have an 8% chance to make your next Flash Heal instant and cost no mana. You can get 2 charges. Does each hit of Divine Star have the 8% chance?
Yeah.
Is that why it
so
works?
I can throw it through every
okay.
single person in the raid, and it's like
Basically
guaranteed.
get 2
Near
checks.
guarantee.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you use it fast enough. So like what I'll do on like Succumb, for instance, which is my favorite fight to heal. You have the befouled targets go out, so you throw your star, and we're pretty tightly clumped together, so I can like just hit the end of the melee clump from my range clump.
Right.
So I'll throw star, mouse over a befouled target, pump the first surge proc into them, and then I'll get like 2 or 3 more.
Wow.
And then they get topped. So if you are not doing that, if you're in like a spread fight, kind of like Iron Reaver or Cormrock, or maybe Manaroth or Archimon, depending on how you do it. Like Mythic Archimon, I'm doing Halo Surge for the spot heals. But some of those other fights, or especially if you don't have a lot of spirit, it'll be Halo Mindbender.
What about level 100s?
Hundreds, just words of mending all the time.
Yeah.
Every day.
Now, the word of mending 3 extra proc does gain from your
4
2-piece
extra.
tier 17.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
So it's a huge thing for taking it.
That's pretty good.
So people were like, you could take Saving Grace for Gorfine. I'm like, no.
No.
Get out of here.
And then is it still Twist of Fate?
Always.
Because you have so many renews going, and
It's-
if any of them proc under 3%, you just get the bonus healing, right?
Or the Tiniest Echo or Drop-In Sanctuary, which you do
Yeah.
use sometimes now. You
Right,
can use
right.
your Holy Word.
Ooh.
So Twist of Fate is the go-to for progression healing in general. There's so much that it can proc off of. Obviously, it's going to people are be lower health in progression. Divine Insight really sucks because of the fact that it just limits you so much. Like we're hyper-mobile. We're like one of the most mobile healers outside like Disc Priests. So if you want to sit there and just be hard casting these heals, and I tried it on PTR with the class Trinket with Divine Insight and the heal spam, and it was really bad. Divine Insight just is not enough. Maybe if it gave it 2 charges or something like that, so you could kind of like hold one to use at certain times. But
Right.
Power Infusion is just kind of meh. Like in comparison to Twist of Fate, it just isn't that great. So
I mean, I can assume that in a certain degree, you're always going to have Twist of Fate up almost all the time, depending on how damage is taken. At least in progression.
yeah, in progression. So it gets a little bit murkier once you're in farm content, but that doesn't really matter anyway because you're over healing it. So it's not that big of a deal if you're in like farm content because you're doing the stuff over again. And if you're not setting yourself up to rank, then you're like if you were setting yourself up to rank, you'd get Twist of Fate uptime. If you're not, then it's just like whatever, kill the boss and live. So.
That sounds pretty straightforward there. It's cool to see that an evolution of the healing style from tier to tier, though. That's neat.
Definitely. Like,
I mean, you're
always
not like
able to use everything now.
right. I mean, it's different for healing because like some DPS back in tier 17, same spec they run for almost everything. In tier 18, like nothing changed. So it's good to see that happen, at least in that regard. So, Malicrin, sir, Discipline Priest talents. Walk us through.
Well, for level 100, Words of Mending is the go-to. Clarity of Will sees some use, but it's very situational. I don't think that it's worth taking just to heal tanks that are taking melee swings. I think it's everyone's job to heal the tanks, even if you're just giving them a Riptide or a Renew.
Yeah.
If every healer is giving the tanks something, I don't think you'll need Clarity of Will. And at that point, you might as well take Words of Mending and get some passive Prayer of Mendings bouncing around. When you spam Power Word Shield, you get stacks that way. So you're constantly building your mending, you're constantly setting out the Prayers of Mending, and that works very well.
Right. I know that Clarity of Will was used a lot more in Tier 17, mostly for like scumbagging certain mechanics. So...
Yes, same deal with Tier 18. There has to be something mechanic-wise that I'm countering with it.
Sure.
And then I will absolutely take Clarity of Will. On Tyrant Mythic, for example, the tanks are being hit at the beginning of Phase 3 for more health than they currently have.
Right.
So spamming Clarity of Will on them to stop them from getting one-shot is very useful, and it's going to save your raid, so you should probably do that.
I would assume so, right? Exactly. So how about
the
45?
big problem with Clarity of Will is just the cast time.
Sure.
It takes a long time to cast Clarity of Will, and you're losing out on so much other healing when you cast Clarity of Will.
Now, but just to bring this around real quick before you go to the other talents, to me on paper, that looks like how Absorb should be. It is a choice, it is a cast time, it is a big payoff, but it's a conscious, it's not just a freaking GCD, right?
Right. So I would say that if Power Word Shield was not spammable, then you would definitely take Clarity of Will, because you'd be healing the tanks for so much that you'd be sniping all of those melee swings, and you wouldn't really have any other options, right? The reason Power Word Shield is so good is because it's the only option. If you take that option away, you need something else to do. You can't spam Prayer of Healing because you'll run out of mana, so you would spam Clarity of Will, and that would just be the discipline playstyle.
How about other talent tiers, sir?
Well, the other talent tiers don't really get changed that often. There's a great divide right now between Solace and Mindbender. You ask one Disc Priest, and they'll say take Solace. You ask another, they'll say take Mindbender. And we each have our different reasonings for doing that. I personally am in the Solace camp. I'm a big fan of building evangelism any way possible, and I think the Mindbender camp does not build evangelism very effectively. So there's my argument there, but both playstyles have a very similar mana return, and both playstyles I would say are definitely correct. You would not be playing incorrectly if you took Mindbender.
Fair enough. I think you say earlier Halo is pretty much your go-to.
Halo's the go-to. Divine Star was very, very, very good in MOP, but due to the AoE healing cap that it got put on it, it's no longer very useful. And Cascade, like I mentioned, is a little bit buggy with the pets.
Right.
But still the secondary choice. It's not completely terrible. Halo's just better. And
then is Spirit Shell still dead?
Spirit Shell is very, very dead. Prayer of Healing just costs way too much mana. I sometimes will spam Prayer of Healing if I'm inside Power Infusion, and even then I take a huge chunk of my mana, and it's like, wow, I really can't recover from that sometimes. So in order to get the best use of Spirit Shell, you have to spam Prayer of Healing.
Right.
And that's just not feasible with mana pools the way they are.
Interesting. And Twist of Fate, just not a big deal for...
well, Twist of Fate doesn't work on shields.
On absorbs?
Right.
There it is.
So you have a hard time proccing it.
I getcha.
And it buffs your throughput healing, which we don't do that much of. So you're having a hard time proccing a buff that doesn't really do that much for you. And Power Infusion is just too good to pass up.
Fair enough. I mean, it lines up with the ring. So, I mean...
It does. Both 2-minute cooldown. Very nice.
Yep.
Reduces mana cost, increases your haste. You can get 15 shields out. You can do all sorts of good pre-shielding with it.
15. Oh, right. That's...
It's kind of
Only
annoying
50.
with the wording of things. If you look at like Archangel, it just says that it increases your healing done, but
Yes.
it does with your powered shield.
Very true. There have been
And Twist of Fate doesn't.
several mythic level discipline priests that I've talked to that didn't realize Power Word Shield gets increased with Archangel.
Oh my.
And this is something like, I take it for granted that sometimes these things aren't very clear, but Archangel is your #1 spell for Discipline Priest. You should be cycling it nearly every 30 seconds. It's okay to hold sometimes, like on Kilrog, for instance. I'll hold it for the death throws. But other than that, it's your number one spell, even more so than Power Word Shield. I think it's much more important than Power Word Shield. So that's the spell that you should be concentrating on as a Discipline Priest.
It's cool to see that there is a big difference in, obviously, playstyle, but also talents in Holy and Discipline.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Outside of Words of Mending, I
Right.
guess. But that's, I mean, you can still say you can do Clarity sometimes. I don't think Jack ever said he could go Clarity.
No.
Like,
Mm-mm.
No.
We're going to experiment with it.
Okay.
We're going to experiment with it on Tyrant in this coming reset.
Ooh.
I would never suggest it to anybody, but we're just
Oh.
going to play with it because it's fun. And we'll have
Alright.
fun.
Relil,
Yeah,
Holy
I
Paladin.
used I used Clarity on Assault and Cormrock, and also, of course, on Tyrant. So I definitely got some very good mileage out of
You said
Clarity
it.
of Will.
Fair enough. All right, Relil, your turn. Holy Paladins. Double bacon
So-
across the sky, right? All day, every day?
We'll start from the bottom. Double beacon, it's not really an option anymore. So especially with that two-piece, if you're not using double beacon as a Holy Paladin and you're not PvPing, then you obviously need to check yourself into a mental asylum.
What jeez?
It's just like it's
Okay.
just such a big like difference compared to the other two.
It's
so,
yeah,
like,
it's just baseline.
Even if there isn't even if it's not a two tank fight, you can always put the other beacon on someone in the raid taking damage.
Yeah.
The next one's Holy Prism, Light's Hammer, and Execution Sentence. You normally take Holy Prism on almost every fight. I prefer how Holy Prism works. I feel like it's a little more consistent compared to the other two being the longer cooldowns.
Sure.
So I prefer the Holy Prism every 20 seconds compared to the 1 minute cooldown.
You'd always hit a boss or a mob with Holy Prism, right? To get the AoE.
Yeah.
heal? Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Of course.
So you have the boss focused or targeted, and pretty much you just put it off that.
Mhm.
Execution Sentence, you can't really find a use for it, and Light's Hammer. Once again, there's no real point where you can use it. I know I was using Light's Hammer for a little bit on Zul'Harak.
On Cormrock
for Pro?
hands. Oh, sorry.
Oh, could have used it on Cromrock hands.
Hmm.
I should have thought of that. But on Zul'Harak, our first strat, before any videos came out, we were just all stacking and we were moving in and out depending on which group was. And I was using that, and it was working really well. So I feel like that's still like an option if your raid is stacked most of the time.
Okay.
It'd be pretty good for Tyrant. I haven't tried it for Tyrant. Should do that. Then in the 75 talent is Holy Avenger, Sanctified Wrath, and Divine Purpose. Once you drop 4-piece last tier, Divine Purpose is kind of useless, whereas Sanctified Wrath is a little more, or is more preferable, especially with the new set.
Okay.
Holy Avenger, you never really use it because there's just never a point where you need to use your Holy Power spenders. So using Flashlight and Holy Light does the same amount of healing, if not more, with the Trinket than your Holy Power finishes. So Holy Avenger really isn't that big of an upgrade to your healing.
Fair enough. How about
Then
40?
there's Purity.
Yeah. Oh.
45. Oh, okay. 45 for Selfless Healer, Eternal Flame, and Sacred Shield. I only really ever find myself using Eternal Flame, but there is people have been talking about it. Selfless Healers coming up a lot more, especially on Tyrant. So on Tyrant, I'm not going to say last name because I can't say it. On Tyrant, pretty much Selfless Healer is really great for padding. So pretty much it gives you like these massive flasher lights, and because the fight doesn't overheal, you pretty much can just pad your way through it. I think like there's a log of some paladin doing like 120k just using Selfless Healer and flasher light.
Oof.
Yeah, it's stupid purely based on the fact that it's not really effective healing. So overall on Tyrant, like to do the most effective healing for your raid, Eternal Flame would still be better. But if you want to have that little number and you want to make sure you don't get sat, then Selfless Healer is the way to go.
Are paladins at risk of the sitting?
Yeah, we're gonna sit our Holy
maybe.
Paladin.
Well, let's say you have two paladins fighting for the spot, and you wanna just throw on some cheap heals. Anyhow, I'd recommend Eternal Flame on every single fight.
Okay.
It's a lot more productive. It keeps your shields refreshed. Keeps Jack crying. It's always good.
Hey, I mean, it's Valari, all right. I'll give you that one.
Right.
You really need the shields. Tank falling over or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean that seems pretty standard. It seems weird though because if you run, I'm looking at if you run Selfless Healer, you not only have to have like a judgment focused target macro, so you hit like a boss or someone. You also do the same thing for Holy Prism because you have to make sure that you are casting Judgment, I would assume on cooldown, as well as Holy Prism for the most part, almost on cooldown, which are both like they're not being cast on your friends. You have to make sure you have like the macros or a target swap for them because you have to judge obviously bad things. So. That's kind of neat that you still have to do it as a paladin. It kind of feels like you're interacting with the encounter a bit more than just playing
A
whack-a-mole.
bit more offensive too.
Right.
A lot of people that use kind of mouse over heals or like click heals, they have the boss targeted the whole time.
Sure.
So it's really like for these other two, they really don't have to do much. It's really just pressing another button on their keyboard if they were to play a paladin.
Right.
But yeah. And my mouse just broke.
Oh, well, that's no good.
Good thing it's not raid night.
Right, yeah, not right.
Well, morning.
So that sounds all really good to me. Anything else you guys want to add about this?
I have a question about Prism. If you hit the boss like during Gorfine's Feast and he's taking +% damage, does your Prism get increased? No, it doesn't. Oh, that's too
No.
bad.
No, it doesn't. Definitely not.
See, Atonement used to work that way, and I loved that about Atonement, is
Yeah.
that you could do
Halfus, baby.
big deeps, and you could get big healing out of that
Druid-
deeps.
The Druid Wrath still does that.
What was
with the
that Throne of
DOC,
Thunder boss?
I believe?
Horadon.
Horadon. Yeah, the damage taken increased.
Yeah.
There you go.
Wouldn't shamans
This-
go AG instead of Tide because it wasn't a talents, and
I
they
mean,
would just
yeah.
like go ham on it.
Well, right. I mean, back in the day. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
It wasn't.
DPS shamans. Sorry.
Right, all right.
Yeah.
Malicrin immediately brings up the Atonement thing, and I remember when Discipline Priests, like, their heyday was Bastion of Twilight and Halfus Wormbreaker, and that all you had in your Discipline Priest through the entire fight basically was, like, make sure you bubble your tanks on cooldown and just Holy Fire and smite the boss, 'cause he takes more damage because of the dragon debuffs. And that was just, like, the dream back then. So...
Yeah, I didn't actually play back then, but it sounds like a really fun boss. I'd probably be interested in trying that one.
It was super easy.
Might spamming the heal.
But it was super effective because smart heals back then were so much more smarter. So they would always heal the lowest targeted person. So smite was like a great throughput. Yeah.
It's terrible.
It's terrible. Hey, it may come back. It may come back. But
To be honest, though, there is nothing worse than like running to stack on Archmon to soak an orb in phase 1. Throw out a Holy Prism and it heals someone at like 98% health instead of healing that person at 40, and you're just like,
ugh.
Blizzard, I'm coming for you.
You only put up shields.
Oh, that's funny. Well, alright then, gentlemen. I'll move us along real quick to a little bit of a commercial break-a-rooney, and then we'll come back for some live Q&A with Chatroom. So, to help us keep going here, FinalBossTV has a couple of things that you can do to help us out and to keep, production costs and upgrades and things. My next big upgrade, I want to get a compressor limiter to help the audio quality on the show, of course, be nice and crisp. But to help do that, of course, well, how do I do that? How do I do these things? So, if you scroll down here to the bottom of this page, there's this little there's some Batman and some Ninja Turtles that look like stormtroopers, and you've probably heard of Loot Crate like a bajillion times, I'm sure. But Loot Crate is a way you can help support the show and get something back for doing it, and of course saving 10% off your entire subscription. Click this button, it goes to this page right here. You have 13 days to do it. The next Loot Crate is called Summon, and the art is pretty awesome. Got some Jaina here. I think that's like a goblin or something. I can't even tell what that is. And of course Pikachu, and there's Gul'dan, and then someone else. I don't even know who this is. Probably some anime character. The chat's gonna like lynch me for not knowing. But the next Loot Crate comes out. It's gonna have a whole bunch of cool stuffs in it. Oh, it's Homer. I'm like, I just see him now. It's Homer. And you can get Loot Crate. I don't like donation stuff is great and wonderful, but supporting FinalBossTV is more about if you get something for your support. Another way you can do that, of course, and help us keep doing on and moving on is to do the apparel shop, which I'm surprised that the trending shirts have changed to the Method shirts recently. Someone must have bought some of the Method apparel because the top shirts here list are in order of who's buying them. But the little final bosses just came out a little while ago, little Ragnaros, Arthas, and Illidan. We have our 4th design before BlizzCon coming out soon. It's going to be ported into this Halloween event that I'm doing with DBH that I have to submit to, so I haven't gotten around to doing all that yet. But the 2 Method Mythic World First shirts are there. Of course, all our other ones, if you want to, blame a certain celestial dragon or not. I mean, those are there too. And of course, all this goes to support the show. Doesn't go to buy me Doritos. And then, of course, if you've missed any of our past episodes, everything is playlisted on our YouTube page. We're also on iTunes and Stitcher. Just search for Final Boss TV. But all the content, all the after shows, the main shows, the side content, my kill videos, the epic WoW battles of history, which were so awesome, Alliance versus Horde, Brutal versus Bay, live casted by Anafel and Coltrane. These were so much fun. There's 3 parts of them if you haven't seen them yet. Of course, in chat, there is a command that is !guide that you can type, like right now, and that gives you the channel and command guide for the channel, so you can actually, you know, see, and there's a good like Google document list of where everything is if you need to forget something, if you haven't forgot something. There's a bunch of like Google document guides for different classes and specs that are also available to you here in chat, so you can just type that in there, and if you ever forget, there it is right there. It caught up to me. And yeah, thank you all so much for your support, and to help thank you all, we're going to take some live questions from chat right now for the next 18 minutes. Math is hard. And if you have a question, you can either tweet at FinalBossTV on the Twitters or ask in chat, and we will take some questions from you all. If we had missed certain things, or you have a certain curiosity about Holy Paladins, Holy Priests, or Disciplined Priests, please don't be scared. Ask away. This is your moment. Ooh, there's a funny one. Cormash wants to know best or worst tank to heal.
Death Knight.
Worst to heal?
For best or worst?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Worst to heal. I
Worst
hate
to
Death
heal.
Knight.
Ooh.
So
Worst,
the
really?
main reason why I hate Death Knight is because they do so much. They take more damage than every other tank because they do more healing than every other tank.
Mm-hmm.
But you see their health drop, and then you can start putting a heal on them, and then they can top themselves up before the heal finishes.
Oh.
And as someone that always kind of keeps an eye on the tanks, because like as a Holy Paladin, you kind of just get trained to do that over time. When I see that, it really annoys me. Like when that happens. But yeah, I don't know. It's
See,
just
I'm
these
on the other boat there. I love the fact that they take damage because
Because your shields
pop the
work?
power of the shield
Well,
time.
NGS, Guardian Spirit, increases their healing. So it's just like put it on them. They take care of themselves.
There it is.
You know.
Yeah.
I like healing DKs.
Okay, it's just me.
I haven't had that many problems with bears. I don't know.
Well, your
I have
renew ticks on bears forever because they have such a huge health pool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I've had that many problems. I think paladins, might be the one that have been kind of scary.
It's really all like said different ones.
I think that's just
Guard
because
is-
Paladins were a little
Shield?
weaker this tier.
So
Yeah.
anyone that pops a huge 1 million guard is just gonna make my power word shield look tiny in comparison.
Yeah.
Yeah, there it is. There it is. None of you said warrior though, which I have heard is like the squishiest tank right now.
Our warrior tank's good. I like him.
Warriors are pretty well rounded. They don't do a lot of stuff really good, but they don't do a lot of stuff really bad. So
Okay.
they're not so bad to heal.
All right. How about we didn't really delve into the Apostle rework in Legion. We did talk about the disc change earlier in the show, but Mal, what do you like want to see or not want to see in the Discipline supposed rework in the 50/50 damage healing thing coming in Legion?
Well, I'd like to see the spam ability of Power Word Shield taken care of somehow. However they want to do that, it's going to be up to them. And the other thing that I'd like to see is more options for healing. In MOP, Binding Heal was my favorite spell to cast.
It's a lot of fun right now. I mean,
I think a glyphed Binding Heal is probably the best feeling heal that I've ever casted. And they took that away in Draenor, so
not
I'm
from
a little
Holly.
salty about that.
Oh.
I'd like some other options for healing. More on the
That's a lot of fun.
throughput
You know,
side.
Holy's great.
We got an
Your other
extra.
option healing is go holy. There it
We
is.
got an extra shield, so that's nice. But I'd like some extra throughput options for disc.
More buttons.
Here's sort of I guess devil's advocate-y one. I guess this is if you wanted to reroll, but if your healing spec was taken out of the game, what healer would you play, Jack?
Oof. Paladin. Pally's fun.
Mal?
I enjoy Pally. Mhm.
I would also play a paladin. I enjoy healing all of the time. So healers that have big 3-minute cooldowns and then do nothing, that I kind of hate that playstyle.
Ding, ding, ding,
And I
ding.
think
That's
paladins,
exactly why. That is exactly
paladin and
why I
disc
like
are the
Paladin.
two constant healers that are always healing something.
Yes. That's like the biggest thing. I wish we could just get rid of all the 3-minute things that are like you push one button for the raid mechanic and that's it, you know?
Counters
And
the
then
raid
you're done
mechanic.
for the next 2.5 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. So like Holy has a little bit less dependency issues on like their button, but it's still really boring
I
having
really
to
think you
like
guys are kind of making it a bit too much. Maybe for like druid or monk, that's a little more true. But like disc still are doing healing the whole time. So is
Yeah, but he
shamans.
took
Well, yeah,
disc off
well,
the
that-
table. The question was if I could.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
if you
Well,
if
for
your
you,
spec was
for
gone, yeah.
Jack.
Mhm.
Yeah. So what would you do, Relo? They
Shaman.
both said paladin, but you can't pick paladin. So what would you do?
Shaman.
Shaman? Rest of shaman?
Yeah, I like shaman.
Make people's socks wet.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
I've just never actually thought about that before.
Mhm.
Yeah, I like the way the shamans work. I like what they bring to the raid. But you know, it's like the synergy that all the classes, like how they work together. As I was mentioning before, it's like you need the one of each class. It's got that like rigid structure that you can't really like change.
Mm.
Yeah, so
I wouldn't mind if they got rid of all the raid cooldowns.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Or at least they just
I
like,
think-
push one button because it's not even that like intuitive. Like that's the thing I love about Paladin is you empower yourself to do the healing. You know, you don't just push the button. You know, take a sip of water. You know, go on brush your teeth or something like that. You are actively empowering yourself, and that's fun. I enjoy that a lot. So
I'll take a question from Twitter. How about? Can you guys talk about running 2 healers with the leech trinket? The question is, our core has a holy priest and a Mistweaver monk with it. Is it a double leech buff worth it, or is it overkill? Should one have the 3-put trinket, or both have leech?
I would still run both. Like, it's a very big benefit. Like, if we're talking progression healing, like where it matters the most, then yeah, absolutely. Because those are like 2 of the biggest beneficiaries of leech. It's super strong for Mistweaver monks and for holy priests. So
Essentially,
definitely.
too, as a DPS standpoint, the more leech I have, the better. So you can't give me too much leech.
yeah, exactly. And like
Yeah, I
worst
think
case
from-
scenario, it'll overheal.
Sure.
Like you're not gonna get backlash because of it. You know.
From a general healing perspective, I think 2 leech trinkets very strong.
I
for
think it's a
discipline
magic
priest,
number actually.
we don't benefit from the leech at all because we do shielding, which doesn't do any leech. So that trinket's kind of worthless for disc. But I love when my other healers run it. It keeps the raid very topped off nicely.
Sort of a small question. If Holy was to be renamed, as they might be renaming some specs for Priest, what would it be renamed to?
Huh.
Weak? Is that what you just
Whoa!
Okay, we all know that I am a holy priest advocate. I think they're a lot
Yes,
better
he
than
is.
pretty much all the other 3-put classes other than monk.
Damn.
So
Okay.
Yeah,
and shaman.
shot.
and shaman. Shaman doesn't count. They're just
I don't
automatically.
know. What would you name it? I mean, like a redeemer or a guardian or something. Not guardian. I have no idea.
I think if anything of the 2 holy classes be renamed, I bet Paladin might get renamed.
put Paladin.
Not Priest, yeah.
Yeah. It's weird.
Like you
know.
can rename a Paladin like Blam Paladin, like boom, you know, make something
Blam.
else. Yeah,
Shock,
Blam
shock,
Paladin.
shock.
Yeah, Kablam Paladin, exactly. So, here, Aladia wants to know, what does everyone think about fights being 4 healed at most instead of the promised 5? Which you say at most there is a caveat for the fact that a lot of fights can be 3 healed and are 3 healed.
Or 2.
Yeah, some
Or
fights
even
can even be
two,
2
yeah.
healed.
2.
Yeah, or 2 or 3 healed on Farnham, he
Does not
says.
hold
Yeah.
up well
Yeah.
here.
And Relil,
So,
yeah, if you go for it.
Honestly, as a healing officer, I hate it because
Yeah.
you have one of each spec, which is like 6 players, and you try and fit them into 4 spots, and then farm comes around, you have 3 spots, and you're trying to like fit people into raid, and you're just like, you'll get some time soon.
And sometimes it'll be 2 spots when people in a rank.
Yeah. Honestly, like we are quite lazy in Ascension in terms of the whole trying to go for ranks or anything like that. So we just we'll 5-heal fights just to make sure that we don't wipe on farm, because we'll like give people like a disc priest, 2 disc priests, just one to come in cloudy, like people that we don't expect to live and stuff. So like it doesn't really bother us too much, but I think it would be cool to have some fights that really were a lot more of a healer check and needed more healers just to like keep
absolutely
up.
Agree.
Yeah.
What do you think, Mal? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, there's a lot of fights as a disciplined priest where if you bring 2 or 3 healers, then you see your numbers go up because you're actually doing throughput healing. For a lot of the fights that are 4 and 5 healed, I don't get a chance to do any throughput healing. I have the spells, they're there, but the other throughput healers are just so much more effective at it that we're topped up to 100% immediately in it, and there's no feeling of constantly healing somebody that actually needs healing done. So when you under-heal fights, that makes it a lot more fun for the throughput healers, makes it more fun for your disciplined priests. They can try out their new play style. Aside from spamming Power Word Shield all day, you actually have to do something different to top people up, and that's very enjoyable.
Jack?
I think it's great. I think it would be great to have 5 healers consistently. It does really seem like the tier is not holding up well. Once we get more gear, or once we have the ring, things just fall over so quick, and you're able to underheal so rapidly. I obviously am going to have the bias as a throughput healer and not as an absorb healer, because it's always the question of you bring Disc, Paladin, Rest of Shaman, XYZ, the others. You know?
The others?
So, I mean, honestly, that's what it's been throughout progression so far, is that it's just you have the 3 that you're mandatory, or what you need to have, and there's just, there's like always one person riding the bench, or you have to switch around, and it just feels weird. And added on, you always have like some weird ranged in your group, in your party chat. So when we want to, talk some smack, we have to like keep that person in mind.
Right.
So we don't want to have them in our group.
Do you not have your own healer chat?
Yeah,
we do, but like sometimes you just gotta go party chat like real quick, be like,
healer chat's where it's at, man. If you DPS out there don't have access to your healer chat, you're missing out on some good stuff.
Yeah, you gotta. I mean, you have healer binding.
Our officers are in our healer chat, so we gotta be careful with that.
Oh.
They've infiltrated, so.
Are your officers tanks? Or are some of your officers tanks?
DPS and ranged.
Oh, that's like our.
It's kind of good not having the big 3, not having the raid leader, tank, and guild master.
Right.
It's scary.
But I think that'll about do it. Unless you guys have anything else you want to leave your communities with. What's up?
There was one thing about Holy Paladins, if we have time. It's just I feel like
a
lot of that. No,
Go ahead.
The double beacon.
Oh yeah.
I feel like the tanks don't need that much healing, like these days. Like I feel like Paladin, a lot of our numbers are inflated because a lot of healers or other healers can do the same amount of healing, like without we're just taking healing off other people because our beacon's just so consistent. So I feel like a lot of Paladin's numbers are also quite artificially inflated because your tanks can still live without a Paladin beacon.
So where do you put your beacons then? Just on like priority targets or?
No, we keep them on the tanks because that's where the majority of the damage is going. So therefore, that's where the majority of my healing comes from. It's like
of course,
40 to 50% of my healing. But it's just the fact that I feel like a lot of that is like bloated on the meter. So like you see a Paladin doing, let's say 100k. About 10, you could say about 5 to 10 of that K isn't actually needed for the raid.
Right. Oh, I see what you mean. I see.
Yeah.
Because the tanks obviously take the most damage.
Yes.
As 2 people that are you're gaining the benefit of healing. Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. I know that on certain encounters you could probably move your beacon of faith around to like if you're healing a Doomfire Soaker on Archimon, for example. I would assume. Like you could do something like that. You don't have to have them always on the tanks, but I don't know. I don't know how that. I don't know. How
you definitely want to move them around,
right.
But it's just you got to do it effectively, and that's just an experience and knowledge of the fight. You can't really teach people, but like here you do it here. People just need to know what to do.
Right. Fair enough. I still wonder if they're going to either rebalance Double Bacon, make it baseline, or make the other two talents or remake them to be a lot more stronger to be competitive, because that is literally the biggest case of if a talent becomes too mandatory and then too set it and forget it and there's no wiggle room in that tier, then that's not exactly great talent design.
The best
So,
option.
That's what Holy
would
Priest
be,
has.
The best option would be to make Beacon of Light and Beacon of Faith on like 20% or 25% for both of them. Yeah, just like split them, just right down the middle, half them both.
Wow. Yeah.
And that way you would maybe consider something else. And like as Jack said, like it's never good to feel nerfed, but
Sure.
Yeah.
I feel like that'd be good because that means like instead of paladins being the tank healers with beacons, it's just like we're just like helping with the tanks, just like a holy priest should renew them, or
just
a
like
disc priest
regular
should keep
hots.
beacons. Yeah. So like we'll still be helping, and then if they need more help, then yeah, paladins have that strong single target that they can help. But other than that, it's just
Awesome.
I had a question in chat from Zaria. She was saying, asking which heal that they'd want to have, or I think it should be buffed or changed, if any, for like holy priests. And
Okay, real quick. Yeah.
obviously, I have that bias where I'd want to have like this little oomph given for holy, because I think we're just like we're really close, and if you factor in leech, we're like right there with everybody else, but we just kind of need that extra oomph in healing. But I really hope, and I wouldn't want to have Divine Hymn buffed or changed or anything like that. In fact, I want it removed and given some kind of personal healing cooldown. But Circle of Healing is already so strong for us. I think like either taking away Circle and like putting it into Prayer of Healing, because they're basically the same thing, or just like making our direct heals less expensive and easier to use earlier in the tier. I think that's something we need.
Okay. I'm sure we'll hopefully see plenty of stuff if they really... There's a lot of work going on in Legion because they've really shown with the artifact system that there are 36 specs in the game, and they really want to make each of them play to their own fiddle. So
people trash on him anyway. So.
We'll see. We'll definitely see.
Hey, I like it.
It looks cool, but like everyone's like, oh, I got to do as much, and they don't look at the 10% buff that we give to everybody.
Yeah.
So just remove it. We don't want it.
Well, lastly, before we go around the table and actually get out of here, I do have one little last bit of promotional do-da-do-do-do to give to Chatroom real quick. Limit is actually doing a pretty damn cool giveaway right now. It's going to be happening later on this week. It is going to be a heroic Hellfire Citadel run with 8 spots that they'll be giving away. This is for US or Oceanic level 100 Horde characters. I'll be linking the information thread in chat a bajillion times. It'll also be in the YouTube description below. But all the winners will be chosen on the 11th of September at 6 p.m. Eastern, which is that's Friday. And all the different ways you can enter the giveaway are all up on the page. So carry! Yeah, so if you guys want to go raid with Limit and do some heroic Archimonde stuff, please check out the link there and follow that way. But until then, I'm gonna hit the button. So thank you all very much for watching this episode of Final Boss TV, episode number 95. And we have 4 more Ketchup episodes on the future. We'll be doing the same pattern again, melee, range, tank, healer. So stay tuned for those, and details, of course, on Twitter and Facebook. But around the table real quick again, we'll go backwards this time. Relil, thank you for being on the show again, sir. You can go follow him on Twitter at RelilASC. Go ask him holy Adin things. And wish him a good nap later on today, because I'm sure he's gonna... Whew.
Straight to work.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Straight to work?
rough.
Really?
Yes,
When's work
straight
start?
to work. In like 2 hours.
Oh my goodness. Well,
Yeah.
have a great day, sir. Thank you for being on the show again. It's super early to be on there across the world, but I appreciate it nevertheless. It's awesome to have you on. And Malicrin, thank you for being on the show, sir. You can follow him on Twitter at the exact same name. He's also one of the ways to enter the giveaway. But thank you, sir. The beard is excellent. Thanks for bringing it on.
Oh, I respect your beard as well.
Yeah, thank you very much for being on the show, sir. And much more, I guess, well wishes to Limit in the future here as the new top spot in the U.S. rating scene. Hope good things come from the new added, I guess, competition. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Keep on keeping on. And there's Jack. You can follow him on Twitch TV at Automatic Jack. His real name is Automatic. He's what made use on the show today. That's your real name, right? Yeah. Don't call him Auto.
Don't do it. Coming for you. It's coming for you.
And of course, you can find your write-ups and stuff on where?
We have the guides in the chat. It's ! Guide. We have the Google Docs, which are kind of ugly looking. But if you want the pretty version, we have the How to Priest stuffs. We just did the advanced guide about a week ago for Holy Priests. So if you want to check that out.
Awesome stuff. And of course, they can go bother you on your stream and ask you questions.
That's right. Keep the faith, guys.
There it is. Absolutely. So thank you all for tuning in for this episode of Final Boss TV. Again, everyone behind the scenes, thank you so much for being here. Next week is going to be a little separation in all these Ketchup episodes. I'm going to sit down with Mukluk and Nixium, and we have a little special Machinima two-parter world premiere nonsense goofy funniness that'll be premiered on the show. You can watch some on his channel, and then the rest of it will be on this channel before the show starts. So we'll see you there for that. We're going to talk about Machinima things and YouTubes and them both being just awesome nerds. So we'll see you next week for that episode, and then of course the catch-ups will start after that, and we'll probably have some plans for BlizzCon pre-episodes after that. So thank you all very much for being here, and trusting your seal of inevitable Warforged gold. And until then, everybody, bye! Wave, bad people! Wave, bye! Wave! I'll give him 2 hands today. Wave! There you go. What is your pillow pet? All right, that's fair.
It's a paw, okay?
That's fair.